Okay, I believe we are now live. Let's make sure everything is up and running. Just a second here. Boom, looks great. Awesome. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks to anybody who was watching our premiere. Appreciate that. BVD, Tony Dace, welcome, welcome. Good to see you both. And again, thanks to those who are also hanging out with us on that video premiere. Let's go ahead and get started here. Get my dogs kicked out or placated, and let's get some week going. All right. Kusada, welcome. I was not just streaming. I just premiered a new review, is what I was doing online. But I'm glad you are here hanging out with us. I'm not sure if you've been here with us before, but welcome. Let's go get that weed going. Oh, Joe, good to see you, man. Welcome back. And we'll get this first bag started. Just about done with my alien. Oh my god, I keep forgetting it. Alien streams. Alien streams. Weed. It's pretty good. Almost done, and we've got our still working through our rainbow tongue concentrate, which we'll do here too. Gonzo, welcome, man. Thanks for hanging out with us as well. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Sorry I wasn't here yesterday. I had to swap the schedule around at kind of the last second, but glad to be here now. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. I got to do some fun stuff. May come up on a future review. I shot some stuff there. Went into downtown LA to go to my favorite movie theater chain, the old Alamo Draft House, where got to see They Live again. A movie that I shamefully had not seen since like freshman year of high school, probably, and had not really. I'm a big John Carpenter fan. If you don't know, They Live is the one of one of John Carpenter's many legendary movies. Probably not in the same echelon of esteem as Halloween, and then my favorite, The Thing, but somewhere near the top of his oeuvre is They Live, a movie again I hadn't seen since high school and didn't really think much about, or I was always such a huge fan of The Thing and liked They Live when I saw it, but thought it was a little silly, maybe. But rewatching it now as a 30-something-year-old, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's intense to see it in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, which the movie is an incredible indictment of the city of Los Angeles. An incredible indictment of the city of Los Angeles and all of the various problems that John Carpenter highlights that the city had 30 years ago are truly only worse now. And it's a very humane look at the problems of the city, in huge part homelessness and wanton materialism. They Live, very briefly, is a sci-fi comedy about a guy who moves to Los Angeles looking for a job and discovers. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kusada. That's very generous. I super appreciate it. I'll answer your question in just a moment, and we'll make sure we get a bag dedicated just for you. And I appreciate it. But yes, last quick thing. They Live. Guy moves to Los Angeles, and very quickly discovers through some plot machinations involving cool sunglasses that we've all been brainwashed by aliens who are really the wealthy and elite among us in society, and they're using television and other forms of media to control our brains and manipulate us into thinking we aren't seeing aliens when in fact we are. And it sounds so on the nose and ham-fisted, but it's really not. And it's incredibly funny. Has John Carpenter's singular, just disgusting vision of people and people's bodies. You get to hear Rowdy Roddy Piper call somebody a formaldehyde face, which is just lovely. And you get to see a movie in which a hero kills a lot of police officers, which happened to be a thing around that time. Tony. Tony is a huge They Live fan. He says it's one of his all-time favorites. I wish I had been just as big of a fan of it as I was The Thing, a movie that I have evangelized for forever. I just saw it the one time. I was like, oh, that was great. Never really thought about it, but I think it is if it's not as good as The Thing, because it's The Thing is such a singular, focused experience where They Live is kind of swinging for the fences. And I don't think it's really totally fair to compare them, but I love them either way. Kasada, let's get this second bag. And I hope I'm saying your name correct. I am. Let me do some math here. I was born in 1986. I think I'm 35. Yes, I'm 35 years old. Although I look like I'm in my 50s. I had a very odd what would you call it, graph line in my appearance, from people thinking I was way younger than I was for a long time to people thinking I'm way older than I am. Very quickly, in a very, very short amount of time. In my early 20s, nobody ever believed that I was 18 or older. I had to show my ID at various places. I can remember one time that was genuinely humiliating. It was going to a concert. I was the oldest person in our group. There were only four of us, but we went to a show. It was like a 21 and up show. And I was the oldest person in our group by at least 18 months. And they went and checked everybody's ID. When they came to me, the guy checked my ID, gave it the really, pulled out the UV light, looked at me, looked at it, gave me the stink eye, and eventually relinquished my ID and let me in. About 30 minutes later, a manager and a security guy come tap me on the shoulder and say, "You've got to follow me." I'm like, uh-oh. I have no idea what's going on. And the security guy made me get out my ID again and pulled the manager over. And they threatened to confiscate my ID and kick me out of the club because they didn't believe that it was a real ID. They didn't believe that I could have been, I think it was like 24 or 25 at the time. They thought I was making it up. So I used to look a lot younger. Now everybody thinks I'm like, I don't know, in my 60s, I guess. I hope that answers your question, though, Kasada, and thank you again. It's very generous. Gonzo says, "Man, I haven't seen Halloween or The Thing since I was like 13. Well, Gonzo, my friend, get on it. John Carpenter is a legend for a reason. Both of those movies you mentioned are great. The Thing is, I still think, probably the greatest traditional horror movie ever made. Halloween is the best slasher movie, I think. I think it is, especially of all the mega franchised ones. I would say Halloween is the best. Um, uh, it's the only one really still going. And now I can safely say as well, Gonzo, check out They Live. It is incredibly funny, prescient, all the things you want from a great old movie. Um, Apothecary, welcome, Apothecary. Apothecary says, bro, been watching you since early 2017. Well, thank you so much. That is actually right when we started. So you've been here since the very, very beginning, Apothecary. Super appreciate it, man. It's very cool. I hope you are doing very well. XYZ says, heroes kill trolls IRL also, but you don't hear about it. Interesting theory. Heroes kill trolls in real life, but you don't hear about it. Can you give us all an example, by the way, XYZ, welcome, of what you are referring to? I'm very curious. Apothecary said, you inspired me to become a marijuana fiend. Thank you, bro. Well, I hope I didn't inspire you to, I hope you are finding a lot of joy and contentment in your weed fiending. I know I do. I find a lot of joy. But I hope I didn't inspire you to do something that, that's not what your life goal wanted to be. Either way, well, thanks, man. Casada says, damn, you look good for 35. Nah, you look like you're 20. Well, thanks, man. That's really quite kind of you, Casada. I appreciate that. I never thought I would get to the point where I would want people to think that I look younger than I do. I guess that is, of all the things that you never assume you will ever believe or experience or come to pass, that is yet another one in aging. The desire for people to see you younger as you are. XYZ says 35, 5 more years to go till ED starts kicking in. Oh, hell no. Looking good. I'm under 30 and seeing 50-year-olds with better bodies than supermodels. Well, 35, I guess there are lots of medications for that now. Another thing that I will say surely will never happen to me that inevitably, ultimately will. XYZ says he's seen 50-year-olds with better bodies than supermodels. Yes, there do seem to be a lot of middle-aged people that look better than our best definition of the ideal perfect body, say, than like 30 years ago. Like Paul Rudd, a man who is 50-something now, I think, probably has like a more buff physique than Bruce Willis did in Die Hard when he was, in his early 30s. Shh, relax, girl. Relax. No. Okay. No. Go. Sorry. Dogs are upset. BBD says, oh wait, just laughing at a response to XYZ. Gonzo says he's recently seen a VHS 94 and it's gross. I've seen 2 of the VHSs. Is this another one? Gonzo, I saw the very first 2, I think. This is an anthology horror movie. With, I can't remember how many each have varying number. And each of it varying quality. And the 2 first ones, VHS, had a different framing narrative. Like there was some reason for these videotapes to being played. One was like a home invasion. I can't really remember. The framing narrative wasn't the reason to watch them. I found them both interesting, if not great. But hey, Grovel, welcome, and Chicago, Nava, welcome. Good to see you both, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I do want to talk, if we are talking horror movies recently, we're talking VHS. Let's talk about one of my favorites horror movies, and it's really only because of how formally cool it is, and I do think it's, at the time, it was way more exciting. More people have ripped it off now. But the movie's called Unfriended, and it's from like 2014, 2015. It's a little small budget horror movie that is done entirely within the confines of a MacBook screen. So the entire thing you are witnessing is just the protagonist's MacBook screen the entire time. And it uses, iMessage and FaceTime and a bunch of other things to tell a story through this MacBook screen lens. Again, many people have done it now. I still think Unfriended does it incredibly well. And it's a pretty generic horror movie from there with this premise, which is a bunch of friends get together, that they get together for their like weekly meetup, and they start talking about this past event where a classmate had killed themselves, and they all start to realize that they had a hand in it, and spooky and weird stuff starts happening to each of them. And there's just an all-time great horror movie scene in it that's just totally underrated. There's a game of Never Have I Ever that these people play on FaceTime that is just incredible. If you've never seen Unfriended, it's just a fun little 90-minute horror movie to check out while we're talking about them. And there's a sequel to that too that's not as good. Chicago says bong ripping and eating burritos over here on his end. Well, that sounds great and certainly alliterative. Dope, what kind of burrito are you enjoying, Chicago? Tony, totally understandable if nobody likes Unfriended. I only enjoy it. It is not a great horror movie in the sense that, like, the story is interesting or novel. The characters are as paper thin as they are in any slasher movie, maybe even thinner, maybe even more cliched. The only really things it has going for it is being super clever formally. Like, and again, so many people have ripped off this idea since, but it takes its premise of like, we're going to just make an entire movie, which is just showing you what a character is looking at. It is just, the movie is just going to be the same screen the character is looking at the entire time. I'm doing very clever things with that. Like, just many times watching the movie going, oh man, that was so neat. I would never have thought to do something like that. So there's nothing about it that's like great as an actual piece of scary filmmaking. It is just a great piece of inventive filmmaking, if that makes sense. Well, while we're here, I will just go ahead and give you a recommendation for an excellent piece of just a great horror movie. Nothing formally exciting about it. The movie is The Invitation, and I don't mean the thing that just came out in theaters this week about witches. This is a chilling horror movie from like 2017, maybe, directed by a woman named Karen Kusama. It's about a man who gets an invitation to go to a dinner party from an ex-girlfriend, and then weird, creepy, cultish stuff starts happening from there. It has one of the just holy shit out of left field, just I loathe to say the T word, twist, because that's always, who wants to know that that is even a thing? But it's really not one of those twists. It's not really a twist, but it has just a jaw dropper of an ending. One of those last shots that will make you go, oh, fuck, and rethink everything you saw before it. That movie is called The Invitation. I think it's streaming on a lot of things. Check that one out if you'd like a great slow burn horror movie. Chicago says his burrito is an asada burrito with some rice, beans, mayo, and avocado. Sounds nice. I'm a mayo hater. I wish I could love mayonnaise. If there's one thing in this world that I just like wish I could turn a switch on my head and learn to love, or not learn to love, just automatically have a new profound appreciation for it, would be mayonnaise, because it is insidious. It's everywhere. It's in everything. People love their mayonnaise, and I feel like for us who hate mayonnaise, we really hate it. And because it is everywhere, if we could just switch it, easy street. But man, mayo. Okay, well, second bag down. Done a lot of talking. Let's go do a dab. Whoops. Turning my e-nail on real quick, which means we'll save the dab for after our third bag while that heats up. And I'm sorry, Chicago. I wasn't trying to come in hot. I mean, I would love to love. I would love to love mayo. I just can't. It feels like a. You know how people hate cilantro, and they now think it's like a genetic disposition to hating cilantro for some reason. We seem to have a gene that makes cilantro taste like soap to people. Figure something like that's got to happen for mayonnaise at some point. I'm not sure what the, actual protein or molecule it is that we just can't stand, but it feels like buried deep, deep, deep in my DNA. Lizard brain level of hatred. But also, I'm weird about foods too. Anyways, as longtime Wheats viewers probably know, I'm a lactophobic. I think I've got lactophobia. Fear of milk. I wish I was kidding, and it's certainly not as bad as it once was. And it's mostly a joke. And I wish I'm not kidding, but it is kind of a joke, but also not. I find milk to be the devil's juice, the most vile substance on the planet. To me, mayo is just, destroyed or diminished by association because they look similar. I don't know. But milk, truly, like, as a kid, I wouldn't even carry a gallon of milk. I found it that disgusting. And not sure why. It's not like I don't have I'm not lactose intolerant. I don't have any particular qualms about eating other dairy-based products, but the dairy product itself, milk, the one from which all other glorious dairy products spring, your cheeses, your ice creams, your yogurts to a degree. Cool. Milk. Bullshit. Which means I probably should have been born in Asia. I have a innate dislike of dairy, and I seem to have troubles processing alcohols without getting sick. Which is both of those things are true, way more true in Europe than they are in Europe. I think Africa is sort of as a middle ground between the two. But both dairy, especially dairy, something like 75% of Asians are lactose intolerant after a certain point in life. And alcohol. It's like 25% of, I think they estimate about 25% of people in Asia have serious problems, digestive problems with alcohol as well. Probably good for their health to have dietary, forced dietary restrictions on those. Oh, Chicago, welcome. So glad to hear that another milk hater. I mean, it's not particularly uncommon to hate milk. Like for some people to just have like a disgust, like a disgust reaction over milk. I don't know if it's been particularly studied why, but it is a big enough thing that there is an actual phobia named for it. Not that people don't just love to come up with phobias, names for phobias willy-nilly. And again, it's not like I kind of play it up, but I really did find it super disgusting. And the fact that there are plenty of other people who seem to have that disposition it's just, it's curious. I wonder why we would develop that disgust response to dairy, especially if you are not lactose intolerant. But Chicago wants to know, what do you drink with donuts? Chicago, I'm gonna answer your great question, your very astute question, which is, how are you eating your donuts if not with milk? I'm not gonna answer it directly, but instead I'm gonna answer it indirectly, but I think it will still answer your question, and that is, I eat a decent amount of cereal, Chicago. Not a whole lot. I mean, not as much as some people, but I do eat a decent amount. And I eat that motherfucker right out the bag. I eat it like it's chips. I can eat any cereal as if it is a thing of Cheez-Its, just straight out the box, as dry as the Sahara. I'm a weirdo. Donuts? See, BBD, you can have your orange juice with your donuts too. That works. And donuts aren't as bad as cereal in terms of making your mouth feel desiccated, but what can you do? I say a golden graham is just as golden when not bathed in the life-nurturing substance meant for juvenile cows. All right. what else is going on? I had some fun things again that I was gonna bring up, but uh, can't remember them now. 3 bags in. So I'm gonna go work on this dab, and I will be back in just a moment. I'm curious if any. Well, thanks, Chicago. Let me know, you guys out there. Do you guys have any curious food um aversions or things that you are just will not touch, taste, think about? Not for any particular reason, but you just made your stand. Uh, Let me know. Everybody's got their dietary canards, and they're always different. It's usually just about how many and the degrees. Anyways, here we go. Maybe no dab. I do not see my carb cap at the moment. 1 second. My buddy. Um, Less curious. Uh, Hopefully it's just being cleaned at the moment. My carb cap is not here, which I need to do the dab with. So no dabs ATM, but I'll find that and get that back soon. It's got to be here somewhere. Okay. Chicago says so. No oat milk, love, or anything. Coconut milk? No, not really. That also helps because I'm not a coffee drinker. Uh, I don't do any like coffee beverages of any kind. So no, don't have to worry about what products get added into those, which helps me sort out my various dairies. I have the diet. I think I've always described it as like I have the diet that a 10-year-old boy wishes he could have, and it's shameful. I don't. I'm not saying that as a thing that I am proud of. All right, go lie down, buddy. Go, go, go. All right. Well, let's get this 4th bag going, as we are currently without the ability to do it. Yeah. Go, buddy. All right. Bag number 4. Sorry, guys. That is genuinely perplexing. Um, I am actually. Well, I'm gonna say if I. I'm gonna go see if I can't find that. It's got me so perturbed, and hopefully it'll be close by. No, hold on. Hold on. let's see. Started watching a Chris. Welcome, Chris. Chris asks, what strain are we vaping? It's called Space Trails. I think I got that right. A strain that I never heard of before, and I'm not even sure, Chris, you could really pin down. It comes from a company that likes just making astronomical themed weed products. And so they probably just created the name Space Trails. But welcome, Chris. Thanks for hanging out with us. Excuse me. Wow. It's very hot here in good old Southern California right now. We are paying our dues finally. And damn, are we? It has been the most mild summer here in terms of weather. I mean, truly has been utopian-ish in terms of most of the summer has been mid 70s in terms of highs, blue skies. But last week and especially this week, the furnaces are turning up. The rest of the country is getting its revenge on us here in Southern California, who feel like, and I know I'm speaking exclusively myself, but man, the rest of the world has been suffering some incredibly nasty heat waves, long-lasting and brutally hot heat waves. We have just slid past it, but it is our turn in the ovens. I think they are expecting record-breaking heat over this weekend, hundreds and triple digits, all that abhorrent stuff. It makes the coughing here even odder. I've got AC blowing right on me. Chicago says, I always say cow tongue. I won't eat again. But then there it is in a restaurant, and I think maybe it'll be better this time. And it never is. Well, that's cool that you are adventurous. I'm curious what restaurants, Chicago, you tried cow tongue in. And which one is tripe? Is that brains or is that tongue? Let me Google that. Tripe is stomach. My bad. Because there are a lot of nice French or borrowed, other linguistically borrowed names for foods that seem unpalatable to us Westerners. They get nice ways of masking it, but tongue, tongue is one of those things that you see both served in incredibly as a delicacy and also as quote unquote peasant food, not making any judgments, just there's probably a way better way to describe that, as a high cut and a low cut of beef. And again, curious what context you tried it under, and what it was that you found so bad about it. Was the taste or the texture, or probably even both? And it's just one of those many things that shows how crazy subjective taste is, and how powerful culture is in shaping our something that seems so fundamental, like if something tastes good or not can be determined by where you are born and what you are made to eat growing up, and things that can make people retch, like literally just retch at the taste or scent of, in one place other people find to be the most delicious substance on the planet, with no other differences than culture. between them. And it's craziness. It's wonderful. Chris says that both tripe and tongue are common in Mexican tacos. Yes, they are. A lot of other, especially if you go to a really authentic Mexican place, they'll have even more exotic cuts than that. And I love it. I think it's great. I wish I had both the palate and the adventure and it's just food is I'm so much more of a live to eat person, or eat to live than live to eat. Excuse me, I conflated those right off the bat. Food is not a primary motivator for me. I'm not a gourmand. It's one of the senses I certainly neglect and care about the least. I know that alienates me to a lot of great stuff, but it is, thankfully, if you're not super choosy about foods, you save a lot of money that way. But I've never been particularly adventurous when it comes to food, and that might be an understatement. But it's not that I don't get it or don't admire people who are. I just put my passions elsewhere. Carl says you can try cow tongue at Korean barbecue. That is definitely true. I went to a Korean BBQ very recently, and again, just like the taco stand, the more authentic you get, the more exotic the kinds of things that they are willing to sell to you. And both of these are so hyper true in Los Angeles. I mean, the most recent time I went to Korean barbecue, I saw things that I didn't even recognize on the menu, which looked really, really cool and fascinating. But they were also incredibly expensive, and the boring stuff was more than good enough for me. Tony asks, do I use TikTok? I do not use TikTok. I do think I definitely have like the name Wheats taken on there. But I don't use it. I've never made one. And I have complicated feelings on TikTok, like I do on all social media, but those same complicated feelings, I guess, are just really accelerated on TikTok, a platform who seems to have really cracked the code on algorithmically fed content that seems to be irresistible to people. It's boy, I don't think people my age, and I'm only 35, as we talked about, even, and which of course discounts everybody way older than me, we don't quite understand yet just how much TikTok is changing people. I just reread for literally the third time in my life the seminal work from the 80s of media theory called Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. If you do any media studies at all ever in your life, you will have heard of Amusing Ourselves to Death. I guess I can go ahead and tell this story right now very briefly, and I'm so sorry I see some more comments that I'll get caught up on. Let me get this last bag going here. We can't do dabs because I've lost my dab tool, everybody, and I'm sorry. I've got to find it, but that's for next time. Amusing Ourselves to Death, excellent book from the 80s about how television has doomed us all. to a life of inconsequential dialogue and addictions to entertaining images as opposed to reason, this, that, and the other. I don't need to go too much into why it's great. Real quick, in college, this is one of my first time in college, first go, first degree. I took my senior year a history of pop culture class, and it's the kind of thing that Neil Postman would definitely condemn in his book, Entertaining Ourselves to Death, as this fleeting, effervescent, trite, inconsequential, why are we looking at these kind of things in depth? And the class was that, but we did read Amusing Ourselves to Death in this class, because I guess it was nominally, about pop culture. And it is the worst essay I ever wrote, ever. Is the most wrong I'd ever been about anything. I, of course, didn't read the book. This was my first time going to college, which means I didn't give a shit. I went to every class to just, on test days, and then if they counted attendance. That was the only reason I ever went to class the first time I went to college and got my first degree or whatever. I was that kind of kid. So I didn't actually read the book, but I, read a good summary. I half read a good summary of it online, and I wrote an essay about what a piece of garbage the book was, and what a crotchety old man Neil Postman was, and how he got it all wrong, and how the internet is actually here to disprove all of his most apocalyptic predictions about the future. I went on a polemic about what I perceived as a polemic, but I didn't read the book. And I got a very bad grade on it, which I deserved. It was the worst thing I've ever written. And then many years later, when I was just reading stuff for pleasure, I was like, oh, I know this book is supposed to be very important, wonderful, read it, realized what a chode I was, realized the thing I written was even more childish and bad, and had one of those like 3 or 4 years removed of like, oh God, what a piece of shit I was, like cringe. You just, we all get those, where you just remember something years later and you just shrivel up and die. Had one of those, and just reread the book again, by the way, and it gets me thinking about TikTok a lot. The book is not an attack on the idea of entertainment, or that we shouldn't enjoy television or we shouldn't enjoy video content, but it is much more I'm sure we've all heard the term, the medium is the message, which is a Marshall McLuhan term, but it is much more in that vein of media criticism, in that television warps our thinking, not because entertainment is in and of itself bad, but the medium of television, the actual format of television, the way it tells stories, the way it spreads images, the way it spreads most primarily, the way it transmits information to the viewer, warps our thinking. It can't not. Just the same way that reading warped our thinking from a primarily spoken culture. Once we had written word, our brains changed fundamentally to take in the fact that we could transmit information across both space and time. So television, so Neil Postman argues, must do the same thing. We just can't perceive it in real time, and we don't really know what the consequences are. He speculates, and he gets them pretty right. And I've got to imagine TikTok. I mean, it began with Facebook changing to an algorithmic generated newsfeed back in like 2011, but I think TikTok is now the zenith of it. It is the most pure, shaved down version of a feed fed to you by a computer system that is designed to give you the thing that you are going to enjoy, or just not enjoy the most. That is actually not it, but the thing that is going to keep you watching the most. And I find TikTok very worrying. I mean, if you're a longtime viewer, listener here, huge recommendation many times over to the book, The Age of Information Capitalism, Surveillance Capitalism, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff, which is all about this. And the book is sort of predates right before the explosion of TikTok in popularity, but is only more relevant if these things are curious to you. Okay, sorry. Long answer. My bad, guys. Dr. SJ, welcome. Dr. SJ says, I met this lady at the bar last week. One thing led to another, and I never realized how loud and vocal women can be in bed. Ooh la la. It's weird. It seems they always yell the same thing. No, stop. They maybe I'm curious where you're picking these ladies up. At the bar. You already answered that. Well, Dr. SJ, I'd say, hopefully, the lady, welcome, Dr. SJ. My bad. I am incredibly hot. Chicago, finally, I'm so sorry. Getting back to your question that I asked you about tongue, says that the texture was meh and not flavorful. That seems, in my mind, understandable. That the organ responsible for tasting itself wouldn't be very tasty. I mean, there seems to be a nice symmetry there. BBD says, do you not have a passion for eating food? I wouldn't say that I love food. I love junk food. I like eating food when I do it. I'm just not a person who if I let's pretend we had a big giant pool of money. I'm so sorry, everybody, for my dumb answers. But back to the question. Let's say I had somebody gave me a pot of money that could be used for one activity and one activity only. And it had, a Brewster's Million type scenario, but for one, making this more convoluted than it needs to be. I would always choose to expend resources over practically any other kind of thing that I enjoy over food, because it's not because I don't like food or don't get any enjoyment from food. It's that I just get such marginal extra enjoyment from incredible high quality, dining experiences, or from, the finest cuts and fillets. I just don't get that much more enjoyment than it would be if I had the much less expensive version of that. And I'm being very inelegant and ineloquent here, but just simply trying to say, like, while I do like food and enjoy eating, as everybody does to some degree, and I certainly do, I get no huge extra benefit from spending a lot of resources on very nice dining experiences or incredibly fine foods. I my level of enjoyment over the most basic things is, you know, not that great. So I would devote those resources instead to any other things that produce more enjoyment for me. If that makes any sense. Like, I would rather get front row tickets to the concert than sit in the nosebleeds but eat at a fancy restaurant first. I'll go to Burger King before and sit up front instead of the awful, instead of the great meal and sitting in the back. Boy, that was the best way to answer that, and it took me a long time to get there. Really appreciate it. The question, which might not have even been a question. King Yeti says TikTok has crazy terms, and they keep finding out, King Yeti, just how much more information ByteDance is collecting than they suggest that they ever were or are or have promised to. It's just, it's worrisome. It's worrisome. Now, I also understand that we live in a country that is intensely competitive and has a lot of valuable social media companies that they don't want to see ceded to a Chinese competitor, and our literal government is actually, you know, invested in making sure TikTok doesn't succeed. It is better for them for any number of reasons. I mean, just a vast multitude of reasons for our government, for Instagram to succeed over TikTok, or Twitter to succeed over any social media that is based in the US. They would much rather see that be true. So I do maintain a healthy level of skepticism every time the State Department comes out and says, ByteDance, you know, got caught with its hand in the cookie jar again. It's like, well, you guys aren't a fair arbiter, and it's not like our social media companies aren't doing pretty nefarious and also ethically and morally dubious things all the time either too. So again, there is a lot of shady stuff that ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is engaged in, but we don't, I just take some of it skeptically when it comes from the federal government, because they really want Snapchat to be more successful than TikTok. Again, for a whole bunch of reasons. But anyways, Flamin' Hot says, hey, Wheats, what kind of music do you listen to? And have you ever heard of the band Dope Lemon? I'm not sure if the band's name is Dope Lemon or if I just misread the sentence, but thank you so much for this question, Flamin' Hot. What kind of music do I listen to? Really two kinds, pretty much. And loath be it to me to be one of these genre splitters who makes every possible categorical distinction in music. And one last one last big caveat is we just went through this with food. Music is not also my hugest love. I did go through a period of my life where I was more engaged with music. I think that is true for a lot of people in their early 20s. But I don't keep up with a lot of music. I don't seek out a lot of music. And the majority of time, I almost am always listening to something. There are things covering or in my ears or over my ears almost always. But it's primarily audiobooks or podcasts, less so these days, but one of those two. So, all those caveats. Back to the question: what do I listen to? Two genres. I love big, bright pop music. I love pop music with great lyrics, with fun lyrics, and the more instrumentation, the better. I don't understand why we've got all these cool instruments, and pop music just seems to narrow them down to two or three. But so, like, excellent pop music with cool lyrics and diverse instrumentation. So give me saxophones, give me xylophones, give me didgeridoos, 50,000 didgeridoos, a whole army of didgeridoos. So, Pet Sounds, for example, Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, that's the exact kind of pop music. The Shins is probably my favorite band ever. And the other type of music is sad bastard music, which is just exactly what it sounds like. Music about miserable sons of bitches. That's the Nationals, your Jason Isbells, and so on and so forth. So, and that seems pretty opposite ends, but I guess them's the breaks. But pop music and sad bastard music. King Yeti asks the provocative question, was I skeptical about lockdowns and the vaccine? Provocative. Interesting question, King Yeti. And I guess the answer comes down to what we, I mean, this now just feels like splitting hairs already. What we would define as skeptical. I mean, I guess I'm vaccinated and boosted. Happy to be that way. And participated in all of the masking and shutdown ordinances that were required and requested of me. And was annoyed like everybody, but largely, I wouldn't say happy to do it, but did it and kind of understood the reasons for it. Now, there are things about what happened during that time period that are worth questioning. I mean, I think I understand the implication of the question. And I do think there are some things we could look back on as, and I'm trying to avoid a lot of pitfalls and here, but let's say masking. Let's go back to just the everybody's favorite. Well, I guess the vaccines ultimately became the most favorite, but masking. I was not anti-masking, not anti-masking now, but I don't believe in half measures, and that's just true for so many things. And all we so much of the pandemic was half measures, and our response to it, and half measures don't work during a pandemic. They are ineffective at best and counterproductive at worst, and they can lead to a lot of resentment. So if you're going to have a mask mandate, which I am again not opposed to or something, it does seem there's a lot of credible research that it can be helpful. You can't half measure something like that. So the amount of people with, you would have to institute, if you're going to make somebody put something over their face, make it work. Don't make it security theater where somebody can wear, a cloth mask, which is we know we've done many tests about particulate that comes out of the mouth through various materials. What is good? We know that cloth is worthless. It's just worthless. But no place ever had a mandate that was you must wear a medical grade. I mean, some hospitals and airlines maybe, but largely there was a mask mandate where you had to cover your face. That is terrible. That is dumb. If you're going to do it, if you're going to put the strain on people's lives, if you're going to make people do the rather onerous thing of wearing a mask, it sucks. I refuse to hear the side that it doesn't suck or it's not that bad. It is obnoxious. It's annoying to wear. It impedes conversation, but I am not opposed to it. Like, I understand the purpose of it, and it does work. There are many also great studies showing at how a good form-fitting mask can help. So what we did was the worst possible thing. We said you had to wear something, but we didn't care what. So half the people put on the thing that was the least miserable, but just marginally less miserable than a better thing, just marginally so. And those people were out just, if you're wearing a cloth mask, you might as well have been wearing nothing. So they were, why would we do it that way? I am not opposed to, again, to things like mask mandates, lockdowns, restrictions, vaccine mandates for people working in certain industries. I am not opposed to those things in a lot of ways, but I think that there are many very valid issues you could have with the way we did it. And going forward, if you just need to make way harder decisions and stick with them. But what do I know? Anyways, sorry if I offended anybody. I didn't mean to, and I wasn't trying to be controversial in any way, shape, or form. It's okay if you disagree. Absolutely. As I said, I think the way it was conducted did a lot of no good for anybody. But I am not fundamentally opposed to those public health tools to be utilized. I just either do them or don't. Javi Juarez says KFC or Popeyes. And BBD says, I like Popeyes. Some of the KFC around her are just nasty. I think that's KFC, period. Who would, at this point, Javi, I would wonder what deviant would dare say KFC over Popeyes. This is America, damn it. And it wasn't the Kentucky purchase. It was the Louisiana purchase. That doubled the size of this country. Thomas Jefferson if it weren't for the whole slave thing, well, that's a pretty big giant thing. You'd have been a good man. Love that Louisiana Purchase. They said you were a fool at the time. But what did they know? Why were so many land purchases in U.S. history seen to be so stupid? Of course, there's the Louisiana Purchase. Was it $15 million for a doubling of our territory? And then there's good old Seward's Folly. Purchased some Alaska. That was Alaska, right? We're a short-sighted bunch here. But of all our land annexes, the Gadsden Purchase is my favorite, I think. The Texas one. Anyways, YouTube feedback says, you have violated our community guidelines. You have made offense of... Wait, what? Is that true? Is that a... Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It wouldn't make sense that I wouldn't have been banned immediately. That's a clever troll, by the way, YouTube feedback. Nice. BBD says, I am always a lover of junk food, but McDonald's is now not any good, I think. Fast food is terrible for you. I wish I didn't eat any of it. It's dreadful. Don't do it. It's, I mean, it is awful, awful stuff for you. Tastes great, but there's a reason it is terrible for you. Highly correlated. Chronic Maths Debater says, can't believe YouTube are banning you, bro. I think, as we said, just a really sophisticated troll. But no, YouTube feedback, excellent. I appreciate it, man. That was really well thought out. Like, your grammar and formatting was so fantastic that it really got to me. But then I also remember we've had YouTube feedback in the comments before. And it seems like a odd delivery method to be like just telling somebody in chat. But I appreciate it. But excellent troll. Certainly 100% had me for a second. And definitely seems like the kind of thing that a YouTube automatic content filter would catch. I would have been so stunned as like, I know the kind of stuff that YouTube allows, what discourse they find permissible, and I did not think I was on the wrong side of that line, but who knows? King Yeti says, the fries at McDonald's are soaked in a chemical, and then they have to be off-gassed for months. Well, that's maybe better than the fact that McDonald's got successfully sued by vegans or vegetarians or both several years ago because, you know, they sold French fries that many vegetarians and vegans consumed happily and greedily for years under the false belief that those fries were vegetarian. But McDonald's was, I guess, hiding or misinforming people, but they were using the same oil or some kind of beef fat in their frying process. And understandably pissed off a lot of vegetarians and vegans. We can have our qualms about, you know, their ideology, but I think I'd feel pretty pissed if that was my ideology and was misled for so long, but that is no longer the case where they don't use animal fat in their fries anymore. Now they just use some kind of chemical that has to be off-gassed for months. As we do know that McDonald's fries are like many modern food substances and practically indestructible and will outlive every single person on this planet. Go to the back seat of your car if you are not a particularly adept about cleaning your cars all the time, and like search between the couch cushions or the seats in your car, and you'll probably find a French fry in there somewhere, and it will look as, outside of like the dirt and sand that is accrued on it, it'll still look largely edible and probably would be too. But preservatives are wonderful too. Not to just totally shit on preservatives. We wouldn't be here if there weren't for preservatives. The good with the bad. Modern food science. That's pretty much all it is right now. It is a lot of, yeah, food science, man. There's practically no greater example that we can think of like trade-offs as with things in industrial food manufacturing, food science. What is good for the goose? What is good? The gander and the goose thing is not always true. I can't remember. I don't even understand that phrase really, so I probably shouldn't use it. But industrial scale farming, trying to feed 8 billion people requires some real cost benefits analyses, some real will this do more harm than goods? And preservatives are, exhibit maybe C in that discussion of, wow, these things are amazing, but also kind of terrible, but more amazing than terrible. This is all wonderful and great. It's also incredibly true and kind of poetic because agricultural or like industrial scale agriculture came from a place of compromised morals and weird trade-offs and odd motivations. The guy who basically invented what's known as the Haber-Bosch process, where we can grab nitrogen from the air and put it in the soil, which allows our planet to sustain 8 billion people, is the same guy who basically created chlorine gas, and it was responsible for gassing hundreds of thousands of people in World War I. And that same dude, without him, so many people wouldn't be alive today because there just would not be enough food to be able to be grown without him. So, food science from its very inception is this weird trade-off process, like was corrupted from the beginning. But it's all good. Like 8 billion people, I think, is a good thing. I think. There's carrying capacity. We could do it. We could do 8 billion. We could probably do a couple more billion. We gotta figure out how to get everything a little bit more equitably distributed. Otherwise, 8 billion probably is too many. Well, thank you, Chris Walsh. That's very kind of you to say. Thanks, man. Racquetball is the answer too. BVD says preserving is, well, like veggies and cheese, good and tasty. Of course, preserving has been around as long as food is. I mean, we've been preserving things in all kinds of ways. Not just industrial scale preservatives. We've been smoking and dehydrating and pickling and brining and all that shit. The problem is, it's just so hard to do those kind of things on a scale large enough for, again, 8 billion people. And when now the majority of those 8 billion people live in cities and will never, ever, ever, ever have anything to do with any of the calories they consume over their entire lives. So again, good and bad food science. There are a lot of great ways to preserve food that aren't as harmful to both the planet and our own bodies, but it still works really well, and they're not that harmful if you don't eat them all the time, consume them all the time, but we pretty much have a food system where you do. So again, trade-offs. Anyways, guys, that I think is going to do it for this stream. My oven is out of juice, and I'm too high to change it over. Don't know where my dab tool is, so I'm going to call that stream here. It's been so fun hanging out with everybody. Cool conversation as always. Thanks for chilling with me, guys, and I will be back on Thursday for sure with our Plug Play re-review, and I hope to hang out with some